Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ayu Ariska Prastiwi. I want to explain or present it about psycholinguistic. For the first is definition of psycholinguistic. Etymologically, the term psycholinguistic comes from two words, namely psychology and linguistic. As we know, there's the word each refers to the name of scientific discipline. This suggests that psycholinguistic meaning cannot be separated from psychological and linguistic meaning. Likewise, selecting the field of psycholinguistic studies ideas related to the parent discipline, especially linguistic, cannot be left out. So, psychology. What is psychology? Psychology comes from English, namely the word psychology. The word psychology itself comes from Greek, namely a combination of the word psych and logos. Psych means soul, spirit, or soul. Logos means knowledge. Thus, etymologically, psychology means the science of the soul. The term psychology, which is defined as the science of the soul, applies when psychology is a branch of philosophy. In general, psychology is often defined as a science that studies human behavior by studying the nature of stimuli, the nature of responses, and the nature of thought process before the stimulus or response occurs. So, the understanding of psychology is still developing today. The following are some definitions of psychology according to expert. Number 1, Gardner Murphy. According to this perspective, psychology is a science that studies the responses given by living creatures to their environment. Number 2, Chilford Morgan believes that psychology is a science that studies human and animal behavior. From the several definitions mentioned above, it can be concluded that the definition of psychology is the science that studies human behavior both as individuals and in relation to their environment. This behavior can be visible or invisible, conscious and unconscious behavior. So, linguistic. What is linguistic? The word linguistic comes from the Latin word lingua, which means language. Linguistic means science of language in Romance, language, i.e., language derived from Latin. There are still words similar to lingua in Italian. English took the word from French, which has now become language. The term linguistic in English is related to the word language, as in French the term linguistique is related to language. In Indonesian, linguistic is the name of a field of science, and the adjective is linguistic or linguistic. Linguistic in general and broadly is a science that studies language. Is the meaning definition of linguistic according to express from number one from Bloomfield. Linguistics is a science just like physics and chemistry are science. So, from Kamsky, linguistics is generative and mentalistic in nature because its main goal is to explain the nature and competence and not performance. So, psycholinguistics, So the definition of psycholinguistic is an interdisciplinary science, namely psycholinguistic and linguistic. Psycholinguistic studies the relationship between language and human behavior, the reason. Psycholinguistic examines how psycholinguistic process take place when some other the sentence they hear when communicating how to language skill are acquired when communicating code from tourist wood. There are several definitions of linguistics according to experts as follows. Amon Page that state that linguistics is a science that examines of speaker are use of a language actually from truth or understand the sentence of that language. So, branches of psycholinguistics. In psycholinguistics, there are various branches of science, all of which studies things related to psychology and language, namely how and why language exists, what is the first language a child hears from the first time, and that is process of understanding it as well as its delivery in communicating with other people, namely as follows. For number one, theoretical linguistics. Number two, developmental linguistics. Number three, social linguistics. For number four, educational linguistics. For number five, neuropsycholinguistics. Number six, experimental psycholinguistics. Number seven, applied psycholinguistics. So, scope of psycholinguistic studies in line with the opinion above Phil in Hassan 2018 also explained that the scope of psycholinguistics is as follows: language processing, language storage and access, comprehension theory, language and the brain, and the first language. From the opinion above, it can be concluded that the scope of psycholinguistic studies include: number one, competence in is the language process in communication and thought. For number two, is acquisition, namely language acquisition. For number three, performance, namely language behavior patterns. For number four, verbal association and accentuation of the meaning. For number five, language process in abnormal people. For number six, speech perception and connection. For number seven, language learning in connection with language learning. Psycholinguistics examines how to learn language properly and correctly so that language can be mastered well. For the next, psycholinguistic relationship in language action and learning. Topic about language acquisition is not a topic interesting before the development of the science, which is called psycholinguistics in the exact contrary. So the concept of language acquisition is relatively much younger in age compared to language learning. There are two theories about language acquisition, namely flow-term behaviorism state that children's language development occurs through gradual addition, so it is with language processing in linear string by bigger finally complete like adult language. So rationalism theory stated can children language development follow this certain pattern of development. So has a structure of language too, which is possible not the same as adult grammar. Actual grammar, the level of language acquisition found in this research are in four phases as below: babble level, hollow phrase time, towards speech time, early grammar period, sensorimotor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage. So the next characteristic of psycholinguistics, based on the boundaries of psycholinguistics that have been described above, several characteristics of psycholinguistics can be mentioned among others. Number one, psycholinguistics discuss the process of relationship between language and the brain. In this case, logic and talk, both from the side of the listener and speaker. Number two, directly related to the process of encoding and decoding. Number three, as an approach. Number four, examines language knowledge, language use, and language change. So, discuss for number four. For number five, discusses the process occur in speaker and listener in relation of language. For number six, focus on language acquisition and linguistic behavior. Number seven, a relationship of experience and communicate needs. For number eight, relate to children's language development. For number nine, relates to the psycholinguistic process of constructing or understanding sentence. So for the next is the position of psycholinguistics in linguistic science in the field of psycholinguistics is the categories as macrolinguistic. It is said to be macrolinguistic because psycholinguistics studies the field of language relations to field beyond language. So, and the last for me, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.